Jen here from Green Thumb Technology. I was away last week, which would have been week 5 of my verdeGraze indoor garden. So we're at week 6, and just a quick recap. I planted my seeds around mid-February. They took anywhere from about 3 or 4 days to close to 2 weeks to sprout, just depending on the plant. Then we waited about an extra week, so that took us to about 3 weeks, where we were ready to start giving the plants nutrients once they had their true leaves. Things were growing really well. Ended up with some fungus and mold in the system. Just a new home for me. It's a lot warmer than our last home, as well as, you know, the watering cycle was sort of at the maximum. So we cleaned everything out, rinsed everything off, put it back in, and I dropped my watering down to 5 minutes a day, 4 times a day. And from there, plants rebounded really nicely. There was 4 plants that weren't doing so well, so I gave them a couple weeks, but then they weren't recovering, so I took them out of the system. You don't want to leave any sort of diseased, sick, or plants with you know, aphids or other pests. You don't want to leave them in the system because it's just a circulating system, so you're affecting the whole garden. So I took those plants out. I actually just put them in a container with some water, and the tomato plant, which I've put back in here, as well as the kale, recovered. Ideally, like a tomato, a yogurt carton or something that doesn't have any light. I didn't have that, so I just put this plastic over it to keep the roots dark. But as you can see, this tomato plant was pretty sad looking, and about half the size, and just having it in the container in water in a sunny window, it bounced right back, as well as the kale. So the kale, I can either harvest something here and put the kale back in, because it's also looking really nice and healthy. Okay, so I can either put the kale back in, or I might just actually plant it outside now that the weather's getting nice. Okay, so my new seedlings here are also doing well and sprouted. So last week I just had, just running water through the system, and then yesterday I added the lowest level 7.5 milliliters of the Grow and the Magical to the system, and I'll probably do that for a couple weeks. As you can see, the lettuce is going to grow no matter what your feeding schedule's at, so we don't have to worry too much about that. I'm definitely ready to harvest some more lettuce here. This will be the 3rd harvest, so, you know, 6 weeks, we're already harvesting for a 3rd time. Again, I could just take the entire head of lettuce and put in a new seed, or I can clip off leaves from each of them, as well as I can take some off of the Swiss chard. And my cilantro is ready to go, and even the basil here. So with the basil, we don't want to get higher than a maximum of 12 inches in height. Right around this time here, I'm going to start thinking about taking the tops off. And the reason for doing that is it creates a bushier plant. Rather than getting tall and stringy, we want a thicker, more dense plant. Basil is one of those plants, it's a perennial, which means you can harvest it over and over again. You'll end up with quite a nice woody stalk here, and it will last you up to a few years. And the more you harvest basil, the more it will produce. So we want to keep them shorter and stockier with more foliage. So I'm getting close to clipping these off and putting into a salad or a sandwich or something like that. And then it'll grow out fuller, and I'll be able to harvest, like, you know, larger amounts of basil. So sometimes what I do with my herbs, when I do have those larger quantities and I can't use them, obviously you can make pesto. I've also got a dehydrator, so I've just harvested like a bowl of basil or other herbs, and then I'll just dry it so that I have dried herbs on hand. What else? Let's look at the roots here. So the roots are starting to get long on these plants, and they can end up getting right down into your into your reservoir. So at this point, I can snip off the bottom 1/3. So something like this Swiss chard here, I can go ahead and trim off the bottom 1/3, and that just keeps more space in the system. You don't have to, but it just kind of keeps things tidier and a little cleaner. And when you're putting them back in, just make sure all the roots get back into the garden. Sometimes you lose some clay pellets. With these seedlings, I've got to add more clay pellets to them so that the light doesn't shine through now that they're ready and at that stage. And you don't be afraid to move your plants around as well. So if you start to find that spacing is an issue, obviously eating it and pruning it, it's a good thing, but also you can move plants around. This tomato plant, it's getting close to being ready for some trellis tabs. So I've got those little clear trellis tabs that came with your veggie walls, with your Verde Gardens, and you can just decide where you want to stick them on. I'll probably do that in the next week's video. Stick one on, and you can use some gardening ties to tie them back so they don't fall out as they get. One last thing here I forgot to add is, again, if you're planting new seeds, reusing your pot and the clay pellets, you need to make sure that they're really clean. So with the net pot, you can go ahead and scrub them in some warm soapy dish water. Give them a good scrub. Make sure you rinse all the suds off so there's no soap getting into your reservoir. And with the clay pellets, we're just going to use warm water. If they've got roots or stuff stuck to them, you need to scrub them. I often just scrub them together to create some friction and some warm water. So again, no soap, no chemicals, just water by itself. You can use a colander to strain out if there's any roots or other plant material attached to them before reusing them. Okay, I think that's it for today. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a shout, and be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can follow along. Thank you.